John Lennon was a member of the Fab Four, the Beatles, the famous band that formed in the early 1960s in Liverpool, a city in the northwest of England. He was one of the most famous and impactful musicians of the 20th century and captivated people with his charisma and his songwriting abilities. He was also a lyrical activist that advocated for peace throughout much of his life. Born on October 9, 1940, John lived in a working-class family. His father, who was a sea merchant, was regularly absent from home and went missing for 6 months in 1944. After John's father returned home, his parents separated, leaving him in sole custody of his mother. But due to lack of sufficient care, John ended up as a foster child and was ultimately raised by his Aunt Julia. It would be John Lennon's uncle who would first introduce him to music when he gifted John a harmonica as a child. As John grew older, he began to start visiting his mom, a very artistic person who knew how to play the banjo and would end up teaching John. At 15, he decided to start a band and was performing at a local church where he met Paul McCartney. It was Paul who introduced John to George Harrison and began the formation of what would become the Beatles. By the mid-1960s, John Lennon and the Beatles had become some of the most popular and recognizable musicians on earth. But this was also a period of time where there were many conflicts as well as political and social revolutions happening all around the world. Even though John was pressured not to make any public statements by his management, he was passionate about his convictions for peace and wanted to write an anti-war protest song. One of the first songs John would write with this anti-war sentiment was the song Revolution. In this song, he uses the lyrics, "We'd all love to change the world," as an expression of his sympathy for societal change, but advocates for it to be done through peaceful means by saying, "When you talk about destruction, don't you know you can count me out?" He also points to the potential dangers of revolution by mentioning Chairman Mao, the head of the Chinese Revolution, a conflict that killed an estimated 1.6 million people. John, however, uses this song to show his optimism for the future by saying the lines, "Don't you know it's gonna be alright?" After the release of Revolution in 1968, John Lennon continued to push for messages of peace through his music. None were more evident than his 1969 song called "Give Peace a Chance," which was recorded during his and Yoko's second Bed In for Peace in Montreal, Canada, where the two would stay in bed for a week to draw attention to the message of peace.
Combined by all happenings as they're known, one is bed peace, but they're normally spelled P-I-E-C, but it's a pun. And hair peace, bed peace is we're going to stay in bed for 7 days, sort of instead of having a private honeymoon, it's a private protest.
For the violence that's going in the world, you see.
To say,
we feel that instead of making war, it's better to just stay in bed. Let's stay in bed for the spring.
And grow your hair.
Yes.
For peace. Let it grow till peace comes.
The song quickly became an anthem for the anti-war and countercultural movement, and was notably sung by 500,000 demonstrators on Vietnam Moratorium Day in Washington, D.C. on November 15, 1969.
Give me such a chance, all we are saying is give me such a chance, all we are saying, let's hear it, all we are saying is give me such a chance, all we are saying is give me such a chance.
Despite John's messaging being widely accepted, there were some critics to his approach.
I don't think you saved a single life.
Maybe we'll
You
save some
probably
in the
helped
future.
old Turkey
Maybe
move
next
up
year
the
we
star.
will.
It didn't do a bit of use.
No,
It's still gone
not the
down,
whole
so it didn't
Turkey.
do anything.
But, I mean, you don't equate the civil war that's
Look,
going on
listen.
in Nigeria with that, and then talk about, well, this is my form of protesting
Well, look.
because people in anti-war campaigns are too serious.
Yes.
And they get battered. What do you know about a protest movement anyway?
I know a lot
It
about it.
consists of a
I've-
lot
We're
more
human.
than
We're
sending your
human, so we
chauffeur
know
in
what
your
the
car
person
back to Buckingham
has
Palace.
You're just a snob about it. The only way
You're
to
a
make
fake. I mean, can't you give up something else that would mean a little bit more?
it doesn't. It's not the sacrifice. You can't get that into your head, can you? You've stated a half a dozen times the MBE is irrelevant. I agree. It was no sacrifice to get rid of the MBE because it was an
Then
embarrassment.
what kind of a
It was-
protest did you make? You
And
said, I don't know
we
much
did
about
an
Nigeria.
advertising campaign for peace.
Very
Can you
big one.
understand that?
No, I
A
can't.
very big
I
advertising
think it
campaign
sounds
for
vulgar
peace.
and self-aggrandizing.
Well, you think
Are
it's...
you advertising
oh,
John Lennon or
do you want
peace?
nice middle-class gestures for peace
Maybe.
and intellectual
It's worked in
manifestos
America.
written by a lot of half-witted intellectuals and nobody reads them? That's the trouble with the peace movement.
My dear, they don't. They
Listen,
go on a
will you tell
subway.
me what were they singing at the moratorium?
Which, I mean, the moratorium
The- the-
existed throughout the
Well, the
nation.
one here, the recent big one, they were singing "Give Peace a
America.
Chance," you know.
A song of yours, probably.
Well, yes,
I knew
and it
you'd
was
bring
written
that up.
specifically for them.
Where are we, and what is this, and what have you have to do with the moratorium? So they sang one of your songs.
Well, if you
Great
if you
song,
can't
sure,
go
but is that
away
all you
from-
can say about that? The moratorium?
You were saying that in America they're so serious about the protest movement.
Yes, they are.
But they were so flippant that they were singing a happy-go-lucky song, which happens to be one I wrote. And I'm glad they sang it. And when I get there, I'll sing it with them when I get in. And that was a message from me to America or to anywhere, that I used my songwriting ability to write a song that we could all sing together. And I'm proud that they sang it at the moratorium. I wouldn't have cared if they'd sang We Shall Overcome, but it just so happens they sang that, and I'm proud of it. And I'll be glad to go there and sing with them.
Make it jolly.
I will make it jolly.
Yes, you know, we have...
Tragically, in 1980, John Lennon was killed outside his New York City apartment, but is remembered today for his activism and as a symbol for peace.
All we are saying is give peace a chance.